Good
Hi.
morning, everybody. All right, hello. I'm Chuck. That's Amber. And
Yes.
below that is Dale. Chuck
Yes.
Whelan at Urfspace, Amber Greenlee at Art Glitch, and Dale Cipperley.
At the
You don't
wild.
really have a social media handle.
No.
No. He's like an elf. He's like the Fae. You have to count the knuckles and the joints to make sure that like any gifts that you take aren't gonna come with unseen costs.
Well, yes. Well, it's a nice hat you're wearing there. I heard that it was popular in Tucson. So
Yes,
we'll talk about that. We went to Tucson.
I have stories about that.
Yes, so we'll talk about. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a little introduction here of what we're going to do on the show. We're going to do some drawing. I've got a page from Goodman Games from the Idylls of the Rat King that I'm going to ink.
Nice.
And Amber, are you going to do? You normally draw something on the theme of the day?
Yes, I'm going to draw Dale.
Okay.
Because the theme of the day is welcome back Dale. So I'm going to draw Dale.
All right, and then Dale will bring us Dale's retail roundup from the Tucson Gem Show.
Yes,
and he'll also be doing some drawing. And
I hope there's fossils involved.
What the heck that is?
Oh, I forgot the fossils.
You didn't bring back any fossils? Oh
no, I brought back fossils. I just didn't put them by my chair. Hang on a minute.
Okay.
All right. Well, Dale gets his fossils. We'll have the theme
turn the
tune.
camera off, and I'll be back in a second.
Well, now we'll have the theme tune. Now we'll have the theme tune.
Okay. Theme tune it is. Hello. We're back.
And here we are, ready to draw.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm going to.
Right. So we love your comments. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll try to actively respond to your comments. We don't have our producer here today, so we shall be.
I am a temporary producer.
Yeah. I'm going to multitask.
Charm World says, hey, I'm here too. Good to be back. Hi, Tina. And I said hi, Tina, because Tina said hiya, folks.
Is Charm World, is that Bruce?
Well, it says Charm World. It might be Bruce. It's coming from Facebook. But it's under the Charm World name.
I was doing some Charm World art this week.
Oh, excellent.
I did graphical. Well, I sort of sent it to them, and then we sort of need to discuss it. It's not quite. I don't know. I feel like I need their input on it before I can. what I'm up to.
Yeah. Okay. I realize that is a big brush. That's a big brush. I don't need it as big a brush as that.
So what I've got here is a page of watercolor paper, which I accidentally printed it on the wrong side. The wrong side's got a more even but coarser texture, and the right side's got a smoother. Dale's always asking me if it's hot or cold press, and without the thing, I can't tell you because it's sort of somewhere very in between. If it's
You're not sure?
if it's hot press, then it's kind of bumpy. If it's cold press, then it's kind of smooth.
No, you have it reversed. Cold press is bumpy, hot press is smooth.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. If it's cold press, then this paper. So yes, I was saying it funny. If it's cold press, then this paper would seem kind of smooth.
No, if it was cold,
It's smoother than cold press should be. If it was hot press, this paper would seem more on the smooth side for hot press. I mean,
I've lost you completely.
the hot press makes it flatter. So the hotter the press, the flatter it is. So
Yes.
it's a very in betweeny. So whatever it says on the label,
Whatever it is on the label.
yeah, that scale.
I think Dale's going to end up looking like a Muppet.
Probably.
Now, maybe I'll sort of zoom in a bit closer with my camera. So,
I am a Muppet.
Muppets soften things.
let's get straight here. Now, I got to figure what kind of pen or brush to start with.
Dale, you have surprisingly large hands.
That's because they're closer to the camera.
But that would imply that you're a three-dimensional being, like with depth.
No, trust me, I'm the shallowest person you know.
Let's see. So let's see what's going on in the world of art right now. Anything in San Francisco? So exciting there.
I think there is a comic art show in Frisco. Can't remember if it's today or tomorrow, where you can buy original art. And I was debating whether I wanted to go up there and burn some money. Let me see if I can find it. The problem is I never trust original art unless I'm buying it from the artist. And I've made a couple exceptions, like Phil Frank had passed, and I ended up talking to his business partner. I didn't realize it, but he sold me a number of Phil Frank originals. So I've got a Farley strip. Not a good one. It's well, it's a good one. I mean, it's Farley. And then I've got some Phil Frank rough comps for stuff he did for the Wine Spectre. So I have all these pencils on tracing paper. I have to eventually frame those.
I always thought it would be really cool to own an original Will Eisner page from like his Contract with God series, because the artwork was so loose in it compared to his Spirit stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's hardly any panel borders.
Yep.
But yeah, it's like good luck finding a page of that.
Yeah. So there
much
is
less
a,
affording it.
there is a show. It's tomorrow. They say it's San Francisco. It's at the DoubleTree at the San Francisco South Airport Boulevard. That's really kind of Burlingame. It's a show dedicated to selling comic art, and it is tomorrow, Sunday, February 23rd. And there's some guests. Mark Baudet is going to be there. And
Oh yeah.
so is Mike Royer and Don Jurgens. And let's see what it costs. Usually the hotels, sometimes you get to part 3. I haven't seen a price on this yet. There's probably a price to get in.
There's
And,
always a price to get in.
and I've never been to the show, so I don't know if it'd be worthwhile. Oh, it's $20 to get in.
That's not too bad.
I don't know if it'd be worth taking cash to negotiate. But I don't know if I'm in the mood to drop money on original art right now. I just ordered some reproductions. Well, not reproductions. Sergio Aragones used to have a puzzle page in the World Weekly News in the early 2000s.
Of course he did in the World Weekly News. Of course he did.
And it was epic. It's I think he did at least 100 of them, a little over 100. And if you have the collection of them, and I have them relatively low resolution, it's like a textbook on how he draws everything. So this person actually collected the World Weekly News, so he has it printed at a higher resolution than I do. And so I bought them, and I'm going to come up. I'm hopefully going to beg a favor from Chuck and come up and scan them at 600 ppi. I'm afraid that if Sergio doesn't get around to making a book of them, that they'll be lost. And I think it's some of his best work, because there's scenes in it like the Loch Ness Monster, where he has a scene from hell, the devil. It's amazing. I just want that work preserved. But
Yeah.
if kids want to find it themselves, just look up the World Weekly News on the internet, and I think it's Google Books. There's scans of all the World Weekly Newses.
So you think that the world is contained in those pages?
I think that his world, because it shows him drawing everything from gray aliens to giant crabs to wood to water to metal, men, women, children. I think that it's taken as a body of work. You can see his technique, and I think that's valuable to a student cartoonist. I've mentioned a couple of times to people that I would love to see those reprinted, not just as a coloring book or a collection of his work, but as an instructional guide, because he has so many examples of how to draw things.
Why don't you just call yourself a Sergio scholar at this point?
Because I know Sergio scholars, and they're way better at it than I am. Uh, some of his neighbors down in Ohio are serious fans, and Scott Shaw,
Yeah.
he's a Sergio scholar, and so's uh, Mark Evanier,
Yeah.
Stan Sakai. I saw an amazing cartoon about Stan Sakai. Well, it was a cartoon that Stan drew the other day. No, I'm sorry. I saw the cartoon the other day. It's an old cartoon by Stan Sakai, talking about how he's going to give up uh, for a while drawing his character Saji, and he was going to draw a graphic novel of the 47 Ronin, where he'd actually be drawing human characters.
Mm.
And he's talking to Yosaji in the strip, and at the very end, Yosaji goes off to, be a samurai rabbit and attack people, and he attacks um, the Gru crew, Sergio and the rest, out of the frame, off camera, and the joke is, that Yosaji's mentioning that all of Sergio's characters look like potatoes with legs, and I haven't been able to get that out of my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a sort of a shorthand.
Yeah. Well, he was influenced by Virgil Parch, uh, who went by the shorthand name VIP, VIP. And if you look at VIP's work in the 40s and 50s, and then compare it to Sergio's very earliest work, like his first Mad feature, Mad look at the space program, his characters are all derivative of VIP's work. Um, that's the interesting thing about looking at his work. He's in his 80s now, and if you make the effort, you can find his early work, like his Mad paperbacks or the stuff he did. Uh, uh, for Mad Magazine, for Plop. You can watch him evolve as a cartoonist.
Mm.
You can do the same thing, looking at Charles Schulz's work, but Schulz didn't tackle the same, the sheer number of things. I mean, Schulz didn't draw trucks. He didn't draw giant monsters. He didn't put the Peanuts characters in hell. He put them through hell, but he didn't put them in hell.
Yeah, I don't think that will be happening. Like, not after that Peanuts movie. They were very much, I don't know, in a very strange zone there. I don't know. I didn't really like how that was animated.
Yeah, it was. I
It was this weird hybrid.
Yeah, they made an attempt, but I would prefer 2D animated Peanuts.
I think most people would.
Yeah.
No, the reason why everything's 3D animated is because there's no union for 3D animation. And so they can push those animators as hard as they want. And so, yeah, but 2D animation, there's a union. So those animators get to go home and spend time with their families, and they have a work-life balance. And they're a little bit more expensive than 3D animators, because 3D animators, they have to work 16-hour days and sleep in the studios because there's no union. That's why everything's 3D animated. It's because everything's run by like CEOs that look at the bottom line.
Well,
just a glitch.
I don't know if I think the studios also think that 2D animation is kind of passé.
They don't know what they're talking about. They're wrong. So wrong.
Yeah. No, there's some good stuff. I mean, and there's some good hybrid stuff. I mean, it's not really about, the tool. It's about
if it sells.
Yeah, the cells. I mean, yes. I mean, there's something like, you cut the hand drawn, but it's way more labor intensive. Yeah.
Well,
And, it was the reason it was done. The reason they have unions is because they were all sort of abused, earlier in the process. Like Disney was very against his animators unionizing.
Oh, yes. They fought so hard. But the big push in the 90s of like, let's make everything 3D was because in the 90s was when the 2D animators got their union. And then they're like, oh, no, it's too expensive to make 2D movies. Let's make 3D movies.
Yeah. And everything got worse.
Yep.
Well, one could argue now that a lot of 2D animation is actually 3D animation, but it's extremely thin models. They're using puppet rigs.
Some of it is that way, and then you still have stuff that's hand drawn like SpongeBob. That's still traditional animation.
Are they still making SpongeBob?
They're making movies.
Okay.
Oh yeah, SpongeBob was up there. I mean, I don't know when Sam was little, about Annabelle's age. I looked up and it was sort of Winnie the Pooh and SpongeBob are like the 1 and 2 money making characters out there. Mickey Mouse, Winnie the Pooh's up there because I guess he dominates in baby products, and there's a lot of babies. Apparently, there's an endless supply of babies.
Yeah, it's a pity. We should stamp that out.
You're just not a fan of babies?
They're okay,
But, by the way, Charm World, it is Bruce. I forgot to acknowledge that comment a while ago.
Hi, Bruce.
I'm sorry, Bruce. Well, I didn't mean to leave you hanging.
Are you coming over this afternoon?
I don't know if he's still there. It was an older comment.
I cannot come over because I am technically in COVID quarantine.
Oh yeah. Oh crikey! I was keeping you to ask you. Yeah.
I have not taken my second test today, which I have to do. I tested negative the other day, despite Sabrina, my traveling companion, testing positive. And she's sick as a dog, and I have to test again today. Looking forward to it.
Oh boy, sticking something up your nose. Whee!
Some of the best times of one's life is around sticking things into other things.
Yeah. Depends on the things. It depends on what other things you're sticking into. Because I have to admit, you don't want to stick it in the crazy. And Charm World says, yes, if we have the time. Because you don't want to stick it in the crazy. That leads to bad things later on. I'm just saying. That happens.
What happened?
What? You've never heard that? Don't stick it in the crazy?
No.
Is that just me? Come on. Come on. Our producer's not on. We can talk about such things.
What things?
Not sticking it in the crazy.
Dude, Amber, if people didn't stick it in the crazy, there would be none of those baby things that we were talking about. Everybody is crazy.
Touche. That is a fair point. Yeah.
Everyone's sticking it in the crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is a fair point. Those babies have to come from somewhere.
Yes, and we're not going to... Kids, if you want to know where babies come from, this is not the show.
No, don't watch this show. I mean, you can watch this show for all those things that we were talking about earlier, of like watching artists evolve and learning about art and artistic process and all those things. All those things, books that Dale was telling you to read, you could learn all that from watching this show. But you can't learn about anything.
About babies? Yeah. I mean,
on this show, they come from the store.
Yeah.
When a mommy stork and a daddy stork love each other very much.
They have a special hug.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So, yeah.
And then the mommy purchases the baby.
You get them
usually on credit.
Oh no! The instructions were lost in the mail.
Sorry. All joking aside, people should be properly educated about where babies come from, and
Yeah.
Some people grow up and having no idea, so it's important to remember that.
Tina says, "Hey guys, not sure what plans you're making for this afternoon, but it sounds like Chuck might have forgotten we're heading out around 3 p.m. to visit friends in Lafayette."
Wait! I thought we were heading out at 4.
Just mentioned it. Just mentioning it.
We don't need to read out all my private social details.
I'm sorry.
I thought we were heading out.
Put it on the Facebooks.
All right, I told them I'm going at 4.
She put it on the Facebooks. I'm just saying.
Right.
I'm just reading because that was the comments. I was just reading the comments.
You can leave out my personal comments.
Well.
Well, I want to hear more about Chuck. To go in the Lafayette. What's in Lafayette?
I don't know. Obviously, Chuck and Tina.
My friend Thomas is in Lafayette.
Are you
AKA Acting Sound? If you listen to the Future Sounds of Urfspace, he is the composer of Taking Off.
Nice. Oh! We should listen to it. Here, let me find it.
Oh,
dun,
yeah.
dun, 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 dun. Let's see. Taking Off. Track 3.
Yes. Very quiet.
Well, I like this.
Is that as loud as it goes?
I can make it a little louder.
Is this typical of his music?
Tina says you're supposed to be there by 4, and Pine Fox says, "Hello, how is everyone doing today?" Hi, Pine Fox. We're doing okay. I'm drawing Dale.
Hi, Pine Fox. Thanks for tuning in.
Hi, Pine Fox.
Yeah, this is mellow. This is nice.
I really like this. This is a nice TV vibe.
Yeah, I like that. He has a lot of tracks. That one felt the most sort of sci-fi to me. which is why I picked it. I might ask him. I'm putting together another album. Astro Kitty and Urfspace 5 have a number of tracks, apparently. I've heard a couple of them. So this time, if I do another album, it's going to be all Astro Kitty.
Okay.
So that I have more. Well, then I can put them on Instagram and things like that more.
Yeah. So
Um,
Astro Kitty is going to be like the Gorillas.
yes. The Planet Earth cartoon band.
It's like, yes, come enjoy Astro Kitty. Listen to us on Spotify. Give me money.
Well, I don't know about getting anybody.
Well, I mean, like, I saw the breakdown of some. It was like some rappers thing where he's like, yeah, go buy the CD because for every CD I make, like $4 or whatever for like a $12 CD, but I don't make that in streams unless it's like been 3 million streams, right? Yeah, or something like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like they're getting screwed. Like, of course they're getting screwed. Everyone screws the artist.
Musicians have been
Yeah, that's what I learned from my foray into music. I thought, musicians, they've got it all figured out.
Yeah.
But then I realized that, people are just as disinterested in music as they are in cartoons.
Yeah.
People are all interested in different things. So,
what were you going to say, Dale?
Well, that's been the case for years. I mean, musicians don't make money off the records. They would have to tour in order to make money. I mean, it's ridiculous, the idea of the Rolling Stones touring. At their age, but, they want the dough.
Yeah.
Over the years, ABBA, they tried to convince ABBA to go back on tour. And I think this was like 20 years ago, maybe more, maybe 25. They told ABBA they could probably gross $1 billion if they went on tour. And they said no.
They probably, the thing is, like, they wrote all their own songs, Benny and Bjorn, so
they don't need the money. ABBA, I read an article many years ago, whoever managed their money put them into construction equipment, lots of businesses. So they're quite wealthy, the last I read.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're
that sweet ABBA money.
Yeah, I read Sammy Hagar's autobiography, and his brother-in-law got him into businesses. Sammy made a killing with his tequila company.
Yeah.
Because I think he sold it to Seagram's.
Yeah, I've learned to kind of associate a celebrity's association with a liquor company as poor liquor. Like 9 times out of 10 when it's like, this is my wine brand, right? It's like been a really shitty wine that they just kind of slap a celebrity's name on to try and offload the shitty wine.
I know Mick Fleetwood had a winery because they sold his wine at Costco.
Yeah.
Sammy, after he sold Cabo Wabo tequila, he came out with a rum brand. I remember the last time I was in Vegas, there was a Cabo Wabo bar. And it was a Sammy Hagar themed bar. And I couldn't bring myself to go in. To sell out.
Carbo.
But now all my heroes are cartoonists.
Did you ever go on spring break, Dale, down to Cabo?
No, I grew up in San Jose, so we're by Santa Cruz. So
You went to Santa Cruz. Oh, yes, all right. So you hung out there at the beach boardwalk.
not that often. I mean, the best thing about the beach boardwalk in Santa Cruz is they had an amazing video arcade, and they
Yeah.
kept some of those machines going for decades. And they also have the Big Dipper, which is a old wooden roller coaster. And when I would go in the 80s, they would have video monitors playing little documentaries about the history of the roller coaster. And my favorite part of standing in line watching the videos is that there was a scene where Vincent Price is on the Big Dipper. Vincent Price was a fan of the Big Dipper, and he's all happy. But the last time I went, I was too fat. They couldn't push the bar down on me.
Nah.
So, yeah, kids, if you need a reason to get in shape and lose weight, it's so that you don't get kicked off an amusement park ride. When I was in, this is before the pandemic, Sabrina and I went down to LA and we went to Universal Studios instead of Disneyland. And to get in this Harry Potter ride, the attendant really had to kind of push the bulge so that he could get the safety restraint down on me. I think technically we're now engaged.
Well, that's sizest. See, what about that? I'm sure Donald Trump.
No politics.
No politics. Where's your bell, Dale?
He'll fix it.
Ring the bell.
What? Hang on.
Yeah, sorry, Joe.
Yeah.
I have all this stuff I have to keep next to me off camera.
I have a bell too. Do I have to start keeping a bell? By the way, Charmworld said we will at Mark's mixing if we can. We will talk with Chuck if he has time. Otherwise, we will not. And then be at Mark's. He says. So he'll be at Mark's mixing.
All right,
Yeah.
Chuck, what would be the holy grail? If you could buy some original comic art, what would be your holy grail? Amber said what hers was. What would yours be?
Well, I said it would be nice to have one. That's not my holy grail.
Okay, what's your holy grail, Amber?
Alex Raymond.
Okay.
You know, like probably a like Flash Gordon page.
Okay.
You know.
Really? Wow.
Yeah,
cool.
like original Flash Gordon page. Gosh, like probably a Pogo page would be really nice because those are just like gorgeous. Yeah. They don't even they look like they've been cleaned up. But they're originals. There's like no touch-ups on them or anything. They're like gorgeous. I've seen
no touch-ups on them or anything.
Like I mean, I've seen some originals. Like I haven't. There's like no white out or anything on the ones that I've seen. It's just like they're perfect. And then I've seen an original J. Scott Campbell. I mean, I've seen him work on them too, but like after he like peaked in his art style. And he started inking himself. Like he adds detail to the pages that just doesn't make it to the final scans. And so I think it'd be really cool to own one of those. Jim Lee would be awesome. Like if I like Holy Grail, one of the pages from his run of X-Men that Chris Claremont wrote from his mid-90s run of X-Men, inked by Scott Williams that Jim Lee drew. But like those pages are like nigh impossible to find. Like, I'd love to get one of those pages and like get Jim Lee, Scott Williams, and Chris Claremont to sign it and be like, you three like made this page part of my childhood. That would be awesome. And then a Black Sad page. I would love to own a Black Sad page, but I don't think any of them have crossed the pond. And
you're just like listening. You're just listening all the greats.
I'm not
like,
listening all the greats. I'm listening my bucket list of like art. I don't want Alex Ross.
Can Amber actually say cross the pond because she's not British? I mean, don't you have to like chastise her for using that term, Chuck?
No.
She can say that. No, that's a expression that crosses the pond.
That is an expression that crosses the pond. Yes, it works. It works. I can say pond.
I can say pond.
I can say pond.
It's a big pond.
But no. I'm not listening. I'm not listening to all the greats because, like, I don't want an Alex Ross page. They're beautiful, but they're just not for me. I think it would be really grand to own a Bill Sienkiewicz page. Like, I've seen pages from his Elektra Assassin run when he did like really hard watercolor and acrylic stuff on top of each other, and those pages were so thick with paint they were curling. And it's just like to me that's like art. Batman Arkham, it'd be really nice to own a page from that, or like a Tim Sale page. I'd be really happy.
All right, leave some for me.
I'd be really happy with a page from Tim Sale, like anything from the Long Halloween. But again, this is I could never afford any of these. These are pages we're talking about in the thousands. Out of the olden guys, I mentioned Will Eisner would be really nice to have.
Did you have his book that had the comics and sequential
I
art?
have 2 of his books. And then I have The Contract with God, and then I have the Contract with God sketchbook, which has a bunch of scans of his pre-production pages and stuff. And
his book about like comics and sequential art, like how to draw comics. I mean, that was like the only one really
well,
good.
yeah, and then Scott McCloud basically went, I'm going to make a graphic novel of this.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, wow, Scott, you're so original. People who read Eisner's stuff is like, hey, wait a second.
Well,
okay. I mean, that's fine. He expanded on it. I mean, that was good. Yeah, after Eisner, because Eisner's was, a little, it was the first paving the way. Yeah, but I mean,
I'm not saying anything bad about Scott McCloud because he made it accessible. Yeah. Eisner was talking about the concepts in an academic way. And
he's much more highbrow. Yeah.
And Scott McCloud broke them down into sizable chunks for basically comic readers to understand and go, oh, that's why this works, right? Yeah. So Eisner was thinking on a higher plane, and Scott McCloud like kind of he chunked it out and then broke it up into educational chapters. So that people understood the concepts. So it's not, he didn't do bad. He just, it's just, he got a lot of credit for concepts that he didn't necessarily create.
But that's like the same with everybody who writes some sort of self-help book, I mean.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that, and Scott McCloud would be the first to tell you, like, these are my sources, right? He'll be the first to tell you, like,
he presented the material in a very clean and accessible way, and enjoyable way, and like he's definitely the first out of his trilogy, the first and third one are really standouts. The middle one, because he gets a bit bogged down in micropayments, but that was a good little catalogue of that sort of time when we were all like doing the web comics and everything.
But that's just it. Is he predicted micropayments before
he was way ahead
people
of the
had
curve.
a word for them? And what he was talking about in micropayments and stuff, and he's saying like you could have a sizable chunk and here you go and stuff. He was describing a video game battle pass before people had an idea of something like that, but he was describing it for comics.
Yeah.
Right. And so Modern Tales tried to implement that model first, and it didn't really work for comics because it was like the first of its kind. But if you look back at fiscal reporting for like AAA game companies like Activision and stuff like that have games with battle passes, they actually cite Adventures into Digital Comics as one of their like hey, this could work. Right, as like one of their academic things of like this is something we should try.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Sure.
So like us in comics were like, oh no, that's one you can skip. But the thing is like people in business paid attention to that book, and they just applied that concept to other mediums where it took off, and that like those mediums ended up being like video games and stuff.
Yeah,
it was ahead of its time. I mean, the comics, we were pioneering things a lot, like just uploading a JPEG and getting an image on there. We were on the sort of front lines of just even figuring out how to do all that stuff. And there were different things. I mean, who was that guy? Ryan North, and he started also Project Wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, we spoke to him. I spoke to him on my other podcast, and I mean, I was just blown away by what a smart guy he was.
Mm-hmm.
I think Scott McCloud in his second book also talked about the infinite canvas.
Mm-hmm.
He also talked, and I think it was the third book, he actually talked about the dream device of, a portable drawing studio.
Yeah.
And, he knew what he was talking about. It's just people, he didn't predict the future 100% accurately, but he got closer than a lot of others. I actually was in Tucson for the Gem and Mineral Show at a used bookstore, a used media store. So they had DVDs and musical instruments and toys and magazines. And I was talking to a woman in line whose kids were into drawing. So and I recommended Scott McCloud's book. I rarely see it new anymore.
Tales Retail Roundup.
Thanks. And I told her to pick up Scott McCloud's books for her kids because they're more accessible than Will Eisner's.
Yeah. They like I said, he just broke down the concepts for a wider audience. They're the same concepts though.
Tell us what else you saw at the Tucson Gem Show. Now we're into the retail roundup segment.
No, should I talk about the Tucson Gem Show?
Before you do, I'm going to take over the big window because I got something to show.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. First
okay.
I was going to show
Look! I got the proof for for the first book of Philo.
Ooh.
Yeah, look. Okay, so I went with a black interior. See? Black interior. And then everybody's credits are in the back. See? There's Dale and there's Chuck right there. I know they're backwards on screen, but you can see them. And then there is here on the back page is credits for everybody. Wow. So ta-da. Yeah, there's a couple of layout issues like my spine. I gotta fix my spine so that it goes exactly over where it needs to go. I need to move it. and stuff
They're a
like
bit
that.
funny about spines. You must be pushing the limit where they'll even let you have a spine.
No. I laid out the cover completely myself. And
Yeah.
so I laid out the spine. And so
No, but there's like below a certain size, they won't even let you have a spine, and
oh,
you're quite
okay.
thin.
Yeah, well, I guess I must be pushing it. But
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, anyway, so
yeah, that's nice.
this
So
is
it's
the
yeah, it's
proof.
like a magazine size sort of book.
Yeah, it's I'm going for $14.99 for it. I think that's a good price for black and white, you know.
Yeah, that's what I do for my little sort of floppies and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, and so yeah, that's the proof. It's going to be available on the 1st of March. I will put Dale in the main window so that he can talk about his retail stuff. But
yeah,
yeah,
okay.
I just wanted to show off for a second that
Yeah.
I did that and it exists and it's going to be awesome. And if you want to buy
You're
my
not
book,
going to do like a Kickstarter or anything for it.
no, I just made it.
Yeah.
I just made
Well,
it and
sometimes
I'm
it's
going to
worth. You get some sales out of the Kickstarter, but then it's a whole lot of work to do it. So
well, I put it up on KDP, and I'm gonna put it up there, and then like I don't know. I think I might save up some money and then like get maybe 300 of them for local conventions, and then try and just table it around the local area and do the day job thing, and just try and
yeah,
offload the 300. And any that sell off of Amazon sell off of Amazon, and I'll get the money off of that. But yeah, it's just more like a hey, if you want it, here it's available. It's
yeah,
not really a let me make tons of money off of this thing. But I do have it separated so that if I make a certain amount, everybody who was involved, if they make more than $30, they get a check. So the way that it's like parsed out percentage wise. So if they did X amount of panels and then like depending on how much we made, if they made more than $30, they get a check. So yeah, that's
yeah,
how I'm doing it.
yeah. Well, you're a publisher now. Well, you've got a couple of titles.
I have two books. I have that and I have
Coloring book. Your
my
Art
coloring
Nouveau
book.
coloring book. Art Nouveau
Yeah,
Nudes. That's a big
yeah,
one.
yeah. I people I've sold a couple of those, but not like enough to make it, to call it a success or anything. You
What
know,
about No Stereotypes? Why don't you have that in a book?
because I haven't finished it yet. I haven't finished the story,
Well,
and
okay,
I
but
want,
are there so many? Okay, there's lots of comic books out there that aren't finished.
yeah. I've never put it in a book, and I know it has uh the black and white versions. I've only made for a 72 DPI like online version because when I started making it way back in like 2003 or 2004 or whatever, I was a stupid idiot that only made for online versions. And so in order to make for a book, I'm going to have to like re-scan and recolor the whole thing and then re-letter because there's typos in it. So there's a lot of work put into making No Stereotypes into a book.
Yeah.
It's not
Well,
out of the
yeah.
question. It's just something that's going to happen further down the line when I have a little bit more time to do that. It's just I haven't had the time. I've been in survival mode. So, but yeah, I just haven't had the time to do that yet. It's been on the horizon. Dale, did you want to share your gems?
If you want me to, should I start?
Yeah.
Okay. Those of you who are unfamiliar with it, the city of Tucson, Arizona, has an enormous gem and mineral show every year. And this thing, I believe, runs about a month. And Sabrina wanted to go. Sabrina, my not imaginary girlfriend, despite what Chuck says.
I definitely
And
heard the voice.
yes, that was not a voice actress. But we flew out there with some help from my late uncle's estate and my mom holding the purse strings of it.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, thanks, Mom. But we flew out Delta out of San Jose, and yay, Delta. Delta is actually pretty awesome. Delta actually still gives out plastic pilot's wings for kids if you ask. The thing is, no one asks anymore. So when I asked, the steward got all happy and gave me a couple wings. He said, "Don't you want some more?" And I'm like, "No, two's okay." Um, and we got a lovely hotel near the airport where all the hotels congregate. The Courtyard Inn and Suites, which I recommend highly. Very clean, very nice rooms. They give you free chocolate chip cookies at the desk. Has a pool and a hot tub. The view is completely industrial and scraggy, so don't bother drawing the drapes in your room. But the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show is a number of very large shows and little small shows scattered all over the city. So there was a gem and mineral show at the convention center. You would see enormous cities of tents off the freeway. You'd be driving through the city and some hotel would have a gem and mineral show in their parking lot. So Sabrina looked up on the internet where to go, where the big shows were. And we went to the big ones and we stopped at one of the small ones. And the variety of things could be everything from enormous crystals, like the size of a toddler. There would be furniture carved out of stones and crystals. Some people would sell bizarre wood furniture made out of tree roots. There was gemstones, people selling emeralds and rubies and peridot and opals. There was lots of different opals. There was Mexican opals, Australian opals, and there's lots of different types of Australian opals. God, what's the name? Ethiopian. Practically everybody was selling Ethiopian opals. You couldn't throw a rock, and there were lots of rocks to throw at this show without hitting someone who was selling Ethiopian opals. And Sabrina,
Yeah, you wouldn't want to start a rock throwing fight there, would you?
yeah, Sabrina brought a lot of cash, and it was suggested that I bring a lot of cash because all these guys haggle. And Sabrina went to get raw opal, and she was successful, and she was haggling. Imagine a big comic book convention, but instead of art and comic books at each table, it's just rocks. And it could be from gems, it could be carved rocks, it could be fossils, and she went for opals, but I went because I wanted a cursed crystal skull. Because if you grew up in the 70s and watched shows like In Search of, or you had the Time Life books on mysteries and the unexplained, they talk about crystal skulls. And
Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World.
yeah, I wanted a life-size crystal skull. Now, my problem is Sabrina and I went at the very tail end of the show. We should have gone at the beginning of the show a month ago. But I go to the show, and the first show we went to, the first day,
So
no
what
one
you're
had-
saying, is they were all out of crystal skulls?
yeah, cursed crystal skulls.
Hmm.
So I'm walking around. There's skulls carved out of everything, whatever rock you can think of,
Well-
from onyx to iron pyrite, to various types of marble. There were skulls everywhere. Tables full of skulls of various sizes, life size, fist size, is just enormous medicine ball sized skulls. And sadly, I couldn't find a single crystal skull. That was the first show, and the first show,
You couldn't find a cursed one?
well, I assume I learned later every skull that is sold at the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show is cursed, but the
All right.
crystal ones are extra cursed. So the first day, though, I ran into some guys from England, the place where you come from, Chuck, and they were selling fossils.
Allegedly.
They had a whole tent full of
Thank you.
fossils. They had megalodon teeth, slabs of rock with plant fossils, aquatic animal fossils, fish. They had those big spiral shells. Well, what they also had was table of trilobites.
You got trilobites.
And this is something I got at the show. I got a number of trilobite fossils. I got one from my buddy Kirk, because Kirk's a huge Godzilla fan. And if you remember the first Godzilla movie, the scientists, when they examined the first Godzilla attack, before they have even seen Godzilla, they find radioactive trilobites in the water. So my friend Kirk, who has an amazing collection of Godzilla collectibles and other kaiju collectibles, he now has a trilobite that's part of his collection. So he owes me lunch. If you're watching, Kirk, you owe me lunch for that. But
I have two trilobites.
The guys there, shout out to Josh, who was a great salesman. They had different types of trilobite fossils, and I got a few of them to give as gifts, because who doesn't want a trilobite fossil? And that was the first day. Sabrina and I then went to Pikes Peak, which is a restaurant in a tourist trap western ghost town in Tucson. It's a steak place. There's like a saloon. Gunfighters walk through. The girls serving the food, the waitresses are all in western wear with cheap cowboy hats. And I wore my top hat from the Dickens Fair. Sabrina made me take it along on the trip so that she could find me in the crowd. And the shows were crowded. If you've ever been to a big show like WonderCon, it was that level of people. So I wore the top hat to all the shows, and I got more compliments on this hat. People would stop me, tell me how great the hat was. I had little kids come up to me and tell me that they liked my hat, and that was fun. It didn't help with Sabrina finding me in the crowd, because she was looking at opals and I could have been on fire and Sabrina would have noticed me. And the other thing I did is I printed out a pocket full of little Zardoz heads, our show mascot.
Yes.
And like the first day we were there, we didn't go to a rock show. We got in, checked into the hotel, and then I got to check out some used bookstores. And I went to Bookman's, which is They've got 2 of them in Tucson. It's privately owned. They're large DVD, CD, um, musical instruments, old magazines, old toys. It's a great shop, both of them. And I looked at they have locked cases like half price books where they keep the rare books and DVDs. And I looked at a book on Tijuana Bibles. I decided not to get it. And the clerk was very polite and apologized. It wasn't what I wanted. And I laughed and I said, well, at least I found 2 copies of Zardoz. And I had the 2 DVDs. And the guy asked, like, why do you want 2 copies of Zardoz? And I asked him, have you seen it?
The age-old question.
Yeah, it's great. John Borman was a visionary. So I pulled out a Zardoz finger puppet.
2 copies of Zardoz.
I pulled out Zardoz.
Why not 4?
He just went like a little kid, and I gave him the finger puppet. So this 40-year-old hipster in Booksman's has a Zardoz finger puppet on, and he's like moving it around like the opening scene in Zardoz. I highly recommend when people travel, go to the comic book stores, go to the used bookstores, go to the record stores, go to the art supply stores, and just ask what it's like to live in that town to find out if it's inclusive and where all the cool stuff is, and if it's a town full of ne'er-do-wells or not, and what the rents are. So I do that.
Ne'er-do-wells takes one to know one.
The next day, back in the Top Hat, we hit another show. Oh, yeah, we also hit a cannabis dispensary, a lovely one. I forget the name of. But it turns out that recreational weed is legal in Arizona. So I don't recommend that people use it, but if you need it, it's there. And they had medical stuff too, topical pain relief stuff. So if you need that, it's in Arizona. Went to another rock show, and this one was fun because they had a crystal skull, a big crystal, like human head size carved crystal skull. And the skull's name was Bartholomew. It was on a rotating lit up base. And I looked at the price, and Bartholomew was $3,200.
What?
And this is the first crystal skull that I saw it was the first one I saw, and it was really exactly what I wanted. So I cracked open my wallet. I did not have $3,200. I talked them down to $2,800, which I also did not have. And they used every sales trick in the book. They gave the thing a name, Bartholomew, which I think they made up on the spot. And they also told me,
make the curse worse.
Every other people have been looking at this. In fact, we had someone who was looking at it earlier. They may come back. And I said, oh, well, I'll think about it. And I left. And I felt really bad I did not buy Bartholomew.
Well, now he said, I've had 2 people come and look at it who may come back. So,
yeah.
You helped
but,
in that.
There were more opal dealers. In fact, opals, if you read about how they're formed, it's water and silica that seeps into cracks in rock. So you can actually have opalized fossils. I saw years ago in Australia an amazing ring, which was a clamshell. Part of it was clear opal and part of it was rock matrix that the opal was in. And, it didn't look like much until they tilted it to the light, and then it just exploded with color. It was one of the best opals I've ever seen. And there was a dealer there.
That was the most amazing things you saw in Australia.
I'm sorry?
That was the most amazing thing you saw in Australia.
No, kangaroos were the most amazing thing I saw in Australia.
Okay.
Kangaroos are like big, upright dogs. They're fun. I
Yeah,
like
but
that.
they're much more dangerous than dogs.
Yeah, they'll kill you. So
I hear you.
that's why they let you walk around in like a big group of kangaroos at the zoo.
Yeah, they let you. Yeah, it's quite good. You can walk right around,
Yeah, they let you feed them and pet them.
but they
But
can rise up on their hind legs.
there was a dealer at the show who was selling little fossilized, little opal fossils of seashells. And Sabrina and I looked at him, and he had one that was amazing in terms of color and transparency. So we asked him how much it was. It was $100,000. So I suspect he would have let it go for much less, but we just said, thank you, and got the hell out.
Well, yeah, you have to trade your way up. You start with little gems. I mean, like Justin, friend of the show, he got into gems and stuff. I mean, with pretty much nothing really, and then he, has been quite successful with sort of dealing and trading in gems and like facilitating. He learned about gem cutting and like his history of gem cutting. He wrote a book about the history of gem cutting and or ancient secrets of the gem cutters or whatever. And he was living in Singapore. Was that where he was? And he was sort of hooking up, like, because he knew he'd sort of talked to people and knew a few people. He sort of hooked people up, like getting gems cut, and doing that. I mean, then once you're in that world, you've got all these sort of gems worth large amounts of money flying around.
Well, that's the thing is Sabrina and I, this is the first time we've been to one of these. And we saw the opals, and there was all kinds of amazing things. There was people selling enormous natural formations of copper, which is an abstract sculpture. It's quite beautiful. And then we found another fossil dealer where I discovered that trilobite fossils aren't as uncommon as you might think at the first show.
Yeah.
And they were about 80% less than what I paid for.
Oh, no.
So that was a valuable lesson. I laughed my ass off. I want to give props to the guys at the first show. They took me, and I respect that. So I bought some more trilobite fossils, and they weren't as nice, though. I must admit that. And then there was all kinds of carved stuff. One thing that shocked me was there was a table full of carved phalluses, just rock phalluses with scrotums.
Oh, now you started to talk about this, and I was intrigued to know.
And they were in all different sizes, and I refer to them as
fertility.
I assume they were some sort of
fertility fetishes. I believe
the people selling them were from, I think, Brazil, and I refer to them now as bedrock wife tamers. I didn't buy one, but I saw a lot of people looking at them, and I'm sure
a lot of people are going to come back later.
I'm sure they sold them as gag gifts.
Yeah, that's what could be funnier, Amber. What could be funnier than the giant palace?
Yes.
Well,
makes a wonderful Christmas gift if your friend is into the Flintstones.
Amuse your friends, be the life of parties.
When they say they found a fertility object at an archaeological dig, 9 times out of 10, it's a stone dildo.
I didn't say the word.
No, you didn't, but I did.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, you didn't have to.
But finally, I'm really depressed because I didn't drop $2,800 on this crystal skull. And keep in mind, this was the cash. People wanted cash there. And if you think a convention where people are signing autographs is a complete cash suck and people are emptying the ATMs, go to the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show. It is flush with cash. But finally, at a table, I find a cursed crystal skull.
Nice.
For less than $1,000.
No, I think this one was like $20 or something.
Yeah.
But I bought it and then I left and then I realized I didn't ask if it was cursed. So I went back and I told them I was going to return it unless they guaranteed that it was cursed. And they told me it's cursed. Now, I've been actually handling it. Nothing's happened yet, but, I'm expecting like, a fender bender or I'll lose a pen. But I'm very happy with this. And I kept walking the show. And what I just found, and these were being sold by people from Mexico. And that was the interesting thing about the show is some of the people there English wasn't their primary language. And sometimes it was a little difficult to communicate with some of the dealers. And what they had was they also had cursed skulls. But the skulls, these are the matrix that Mexican opal would be in. So these skulls are super cursed because they have opal in them. And I don't know what the curse is. They couldn't tell me. I would ask them, how is this little skull cursed? And they would usually tell me, you have to wait until my husband comes back to the booth. He knows. And the first one of these I bought.
Also, he carries a gun.
The first one I bought. In fact, I think it's these. This. I bought these, and I forgot to ask, are they cursed? And I went back, and I asked the guy, are these cursed? And his English wasn't good enough to understand, but his partner, who was fluent, just turned to him and says, "Just tell them they're cursed."
Yeah.
And he's just, "They're cursed." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you." So there were a number of dealers there who had these little skull carvings that were partially opal.
Oh, I thought you were going to say a number of dealers that had these little encounters with you.
Did
you see that?
But
guy?
they also sold little carved animals that were partially opal. And this is in between. At the first show, I forgot, there was Tibetan monks selling gongs and metal drums and these singing bowls, like I have one, and just huge stacks of them, So it was funny because they were Buddhists and they're supposed to be non-materialistic, and they were selling these gongs for thousands of dollars.
Well, they need money to help the Dalai Lama.
That's true. But I did find a couple more crystal skulls about this size, also cursed because I asked. Those who couldn't tell me if the skull was cursed, I went back to that guy at the table who told his buddy, just tell him they're cursed. And I would ask him, I did this a couple of times, I just bought these, is it cursed? And he would say, yes, it's cursed. The last time he just said, listen, kid, all the skulls that are sold at the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show are cursed.
All of them.
No, all of them. All of them. Cursed. And
there's just a blanket curse. We bring in a witch doctor, comes in before the show opens.
To sell them. They're cursed. And then
Once you enter Tucson, you're cursed.
no, it's just the skull. It's just
You got
the
a
skull.
skull in your head, you're cursed.
But we then it's the thing that's the real trouble of the show. I mean, the environment is fine. They're in these enormous temporary buildings with huge air conditioners and air ducts pumping air into it. So what really is the problem is you run out of money or your feet start to hurt. And there was other things, at the first show, there was a lovely booth run by mushroom foragers, and they were selling shadow boxes of dried mushrooms that were labeled as to what they were. I almost bought one, but it would. There's no way I could bring it back in my luggage without breaking it.
So it was like a diorama almost.
It was just a display of different dried mushrooms that were foraged with little labels. I mean, that was cool.
Yeah, that's cool. With the species or the the species name of the fungus.
Yeah, it was cool. They gave me their card. I guess they'll ship me one if I decide to buy one. And there was jewelry, rings, bracelets. There was loose gemstones, but were polished, for jewelers to put stuff in rings. And then some of the tents at the first show, you couldn't go in without a resale license. These were wholesalers. And what I realized is a lot of people who have little art shops sell collectibles. They'll go to the show and load up on stock.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't do any of these shows without a resale license, can you?
No, the majority of the shows that we went to, they were selling direct to customers.
Sorry. There's a seller's permit. There's a reseller's permit is a different thing.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
I assume everyone who was selling there had a reseller's permit. But
what's the difference between a seller's permit and a reseller's permit?
A seller's permit means that, like, say you're bringing something in from outside the country, right? Like gems, okay? So you have a seller's permit. That means that you're the primary person bringing it in from outside the country. I'm selling these gems. A reseller's permit is like a wholesaler's license, which means that you can buy at bulk these gems from a seller, right? And then sell them in your shop, at whatever price that you want at your retail price, because you bought them at an agreed upon price that wasn't a retail price with the seller because you have a reseller's license, right? It's like having a wholesaler's license. But it works a lot with like international shipping and stuff like that. It's like
all right, but like, okay, say me as an artist, all right, I have my seller's permit to sell at comic shows, like the books I get printed. But okay, supposing I bought
so a reseller's license for you would work like this. Okay, so you're the seller, you have books, you have prints. Okay, you would work with resellers at shows you are not personally at to run a booth for you to sell your stuff and then kick you back a piece for selling your stuff because they're resellers. Okay, so it's like it's like franchising your Urfspace, right? So say there's like 3 conventions in a weekend, and you want to work San Diego Comic-Con, but there's also like Baltimore Comic-Con and then like Dink or whatever. You can pay resellers to have booths at these 2 other cons the same weekend, sell your books, sell your prints for you, right? Represent you at these shows, and then they take a cut of running the booth and doing everything, and then they they send you basically a percentage back because they bought stuff at like a discount from you, and then they give you like a cut back because they bought it at a discount. It's like they're buying like retail from you in order to like be able to have access to like your stuff. And so like in gems and things, when you have a bunch of stuff like, you know, opals, when you're working with a reseller, it's like working with consignment. So it's like, you know, if I'm bringing in a bunch of opals from Australia and then I get them in 100 shops, if those 100 shops sell my opals, they're going to send me back a percentage of like the money that they made off of my opals because they bought them from me as a seller, them as resellers of my opals, right? It's a legal thing. It's like like I said, it's kind of like a wholesaler's license, but you're like still working in tandem with the original seller.
Oh my god, how do you know all this stuff?
Because
that's so confusing.
Because I've researched it. I've looked into stuff like this to like see, you know, like I was interested in franchising and things, and you know, like I wanted to know what a wholesaler's license was, and that, you know, oh, what's the difference between a wholesaler's license and retailers or a reseller's license? Oh, this is interesting. You know, like the North America Free Trade Agreement, the NAFTA agreement. It has 3 paragraphs dedicated to supermodels and not a single paragraph dedicated to graphic designers. So it's like, you know, like if you want to work in Canada or you want to work in Mexico as a graphic designer, there's nothing in the NAFTA agreement to like help you make that move, right? But if you're supermodel, there's 3 paragraphs to help you navigate that. Well, to you know, be able to be a supermodel in one of the other countries. Yeah. Yeah. And I read that when I moved to Canada to live with Ryan, because again, I was trying to figure out like what my work visa situation was.
All right, that explains actually a lot, because, you know, I noticed that there's a lot of sort of sexy supermodels all over the internet and everywhere, but I don't see very much good graphic design anywhere. So it definitely, you can't say these things don't have an effect down the years.
Yeah. Well, and like you know, to move to Europe and stuff, you know, there's a lot of countries right now that are like, yeah, you can get a work visa to live here, but the work visas that are open are like for truck driver, you know, for like construction worker. Like they don't have.
Wait, sorry, to interrupt. I just realized we haven't looked at comments for a while.
Oh no, the only comment's my translator.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't missed anything.
Mean to interrupt.
Yeah, we haven't missed anything.
All right. Well, come on. We need some comments.
Would you like me to continue talking?
Yeah, we interrupted Dale.
I can see people. There's some people watching the show.
Yes.
Or maybe they just went back to sleep. I think it's nice. I want people to sort of wake up in the Saturday morning and turn on the show and then go back to sleep.
Well, one of the highlights of that day, which turned out to be Valentine's Day, and that's partially what this trip was enormous Valentine's Day gift for Sabrina. I actually got a real cursed crystal skull. And I can't take it out of the packaging or touch it with my hands.
Or the curse will
yeah.
You told me that one you gave me the other day wasn't real.
No, that was real. That one was cursed. Yeah, that's the thing, is that's why you buy cursed crystal skulls, is to give them to people, laugh, and run away. That's what I did to Chuck. So this one is actually made of Mexican opal. And the guys couldn't tell me about the curse because they barely spoke English. But I took it back to that guy who was telling me that all of them were cursed. and he wouldn't even touch this one. So that's how cursed this is.
I'm realizing that maybe you just gave me the idea. I had an idea last night. We were I was trying to explain what the different D&D dice were, and I made Tina roll a D20, and then she
You're
rolled a
forcing
4.
your
I
wife
said,
to
"Oh, the orc
play
kills
D&D?
you," and then I was like, "Ha, you just played D&D," and wanted to run away. But I thought that'd be a good meme. You give people a D20, you say, "Roll this," then you interpret the result, and you say, "Ha, you just played D&D," and run away. So, but I'm realizing maybe I got that idea because you were talking about giving people crystal skull heads and running away the other day.
Yeah. Well, that's why you buy it, to curse your friends.
Well, we should do some A/B testing on those memes. We need to get some interns on that right away.
Yes, the show needs interns. Where is our intern?
You're the only one with an intern.
Yeah. But it turns out that day was actually Valentine's Day, and Sabrina and I decided we would go out to dinner, but we knew everything was going to be crowded, so we found a Chinese restaurant in Tucson that served Peking duck 3 different ways. So I actually called them ahead of time to reserve a duck, and it was duck one way, the duck with the pancakes and the plum sauce and the onions. And we went, it was all decorated for Valentine's Day. It was the worst damn Chinese food I've ever had. It was the worst Peking duck. The waitress would lie to us about, she would bring out an appetizer and said, "Here's your appetizer." We had to tell them, "No, this isn't our appetizer." And about the 3rd time, we just said, "Fine, it's our appetizer," and we ate it. And the Peking duck was dreadful. I actually had to complain to the manager. And he said, "Well, have you had Peking duck elsewhere in Tucson?" And I had to explain, "No, but I've had it in San Francisco. So I think I know what it is."
Were you still wearing your top hat while you were doing
Yes.
this?
Yes, I was. And people were still giving me compliments wherever I went. So we did make up for it afterwards. I went to Zia Records. I don't know if you can see this pin. An awesome used record shop, CDs and DVDs in Tucson. I highly recommend, along with Bookman's, go to Zia Records. And I found 2 more copies of Zardoz on DVD.
Is this as well as the 2 you were talking about earlier, or is this the same 2?
No, this is a different 2.
So in total now you found 4 copies of Zardoz.
Yeah, I bought 4 copies of Zardoz when I was on my trip.
Of course you did.
And I was talking to the guy, because you always talk to the used record store guy, and I asked him, "Have you seen Zardoz?" And he goes, "Yeah." So I pulled out a finger puppet, and he got all excited, and I gave him a finger puppet. And
is this exactly the same story that with the other guy?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
did that at the rock show. The girl who was selling the shadow boxes full of dried mushrooms, I asked if she saw Zardoz. He said, "Yes, I've seen it. It's kind of off-putting." And then I pulled out the finger puppet, and she turned into a toddler. And I gave her the finger puppet, and she's playing with it as we're leaving the booth.
She said she thought Zardoz was off-putting.
Yes.
That's good. That's a good review. That's good.
But it isn't as off-putting when you have a Zardoz finger puppet. One guy, Sabrina was looking for opals, and we asked a dealer this dealer was cool. He had like a big bowl of carved moose antler skulls, and I bought one. And little tiny thing. And we asked if there were any opal dealers in this show, and he said, "Oh, I'll take you to the opal dealer." And he actually told his pals at his booth, "I'm going to walk these people over to the opal dealer," and he did it. And I didn't have any way to thank him, so I asked if he saw the movie Zardoz, and He said, no, he hadn't. And I said, well, do you know who Sean Connery is? He says, yeah, of course I do. So I got out the finger puppet, and he got like, he was all excited, and he swore to me that now that he has the finger puppet, he is going to find the movie Zardoz and watch it. He swore to me he would do this. He was all excited about it.
You're hoping to basically generate enough interest for Hollywood to want to make a Zardoz sequel. I mean, John Boorman did do a sequel to Hope and Glory like much later, which I haven't seen yet, but I mean relatively recently.
Well, anyone who's seen
so he might be encouraged to make a sequel to Zardoz.
Well, John Boorman's retired because of his age, but
I think if he's completely senile, he couldn't hurt.
If you watch Excalibur is a spiritual sequel to Zardoz. Because
Hope and Glory then also is a sequel to Excalibur because he has like himself as a kid playing with the little knights in the grass at the beginning of Hope and Glory.
Yeah. But it was fun. Then we weren't there that long. We were only there for 4 days. The last day we went to the convention center show. And I forgot. Before we went to the Bad Chinese. No, Saturday. So we went to the Cowboy.
This is a very long retail round up.
Well,
I'm putting you back in the smaller window.
I'm back. I'm sorry.
We went to Bad Chinese. On the way to this famous cowboy steakhouse, the Silver Saddle, we did stop at a hotel parking lot that had a little rock show. And that is where I actually found someone selling crystal skulls. The people who sell the crystal skulls don't necessarily do it at the big tents. They find some place and people find them via the internet. But I found a booth that was selling life-size crystal skulls. They had at least a dozen of them there. And they had crystal skulls with wings. They had a crystal skull with another crystal skull coming out of it. They had little fist-sized crystal skulls. But the life-size crystal skulls, which they told me were all cursed, start at $6,000.
Of course they do.
Yeah. And
if only you hadn't spent that other money.
Well, Sabrina and I talked about that. So I didn't buy a $2,800 crystal skull, but I probably spent, a few hundred on, low hundreds on smaller cursed crystal skulls and opal skulls. So from my point of view, I actually saved more than $2,000.
Now I have a question.
Yes.
Which is better? Having one giant skull with one curse on it, or a bunch of little skulls with a bunch of little curses on it?
Okay, so before the show, I have this little cursed crystal skull that I got in Columbus, Ohio's only rock shop.
Mm-hmm.
And they guaranteed that it was cursed. And I carry this with me as a memento mori. And I also now carry that Mexican opal cursed crystal skull.
So the curses are fighting. They're duking it out.
And after we got back from the show, Sabrina came down with COVID, which is now part of ConCrud.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't know what ConCrud is, you go to a show where you're walking around talking to a lot of dealers, you usually get sick. And it was in the past colds and flu, and now COVID is part of that. But I so far have tested negative, and the only difference is that I am now carrying on my person 2 cursed crystal skulls. So if I
so it
test
cursed
negative
COVID.
again today, that's definitive proof.
So your logic is that it's a tiger scaring rock about COVID.
No, they're both cursed, and because they're small, the curses aren't necessarily affecting me, but viruses are really teeny tiny. So the skulls are killing the viruses, or the curses are killing the viruses. And you know,
Sure.
I might get a nosebleed out of it or hemorrhoids or something. But
Why don't you just get a necklace of like strung little crystal skulls then?
Serena
Because
wants
then
me to.
that's just the smallest of the skulls.
Well, some of them do have. You can get them as beads.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Sabrina
saying.
wants me to have them on my hat, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, then you'd look like a voodoo lord.
This hat is kind of like because I can't have pets in my apartment. This is now my house pet, and I take it out on walks. Um, but yeah, we went to some cowboy steakhouse after me not buying the $6,000.
Moving on quickly.
And unfortunately, it was too packed. They kept pushing out the wait time, but there was this kick-ass little Girl Scout waiting outside the restaurant with her parents, and it was brilliant because all the people waiting for their table for the steakhouse were buying boxes of Girl Scout cookies and spoiling their appetites while they were waiting. I gave her.
Well, that's a good place to set up. Yeah, in line for a queue to a restaurant where people are hungry.
Yeah, you can't set up as a Girl Scout in front of a cannabis dispensary.
No, they don't let that.
Yeah.
They don't let that happen anymore.
But
that went viral then, though.
Unfortunately, we didn't go to the Silver Saddle, but we went to El Corral, which is in an old. It's in a very old building, and the restaurant's been open for at least 60 years, and it's another steakhouse. I mean, Tucson's full of steakhouses, but it was a lot of fun. I recommend El Corral.
I hope your gut's okay.
Oh yeah, I'm a carnivore, and they gave you huge portions. Then we went. We were under time pressure. I must say that El Corral has great, efficient service. We went to the Gaslight, which is, if you grew up in San Jose, there were two, and this is 70s and 80s, there were two vaudeville theaters with live performances, music and comedy. And they went out of business years ago, but Tucson still has one. It's called the Gaslight. You pay to get in. They seat you at a table. A waitress comes and you can get everything from pizza to wings to ice cream to cookies to brownies and booze. They even had good non-alcoholic beer. And then there's a performance. And the performance that night was Conan the Barbarian. And it was a parody of Conan and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And they had a parody of Xena Warrior Princess. I can't recommend the Gaslighter enough. If you're in Tucson, go to the Gaslighter.
Well, I do like Xena Warrior.
The Gaslight. Sorry. Go on.
I do like Xena the Warrior Princess.
Yeah. The best thing was they give you a little newspaper that's the program for the show, and it has the lyrics to all the songs, so you can sing along. Last day, went to the Tucson Convention Center, and that was an expensive gem and mineral show. That's where they had diamonds, rubies, actual jewelry. They had gem carvings where people would take gemstones and carve them into little snails and dragon heads and Buddhas. and various Indian deities. I mean, some amazing work. They also, this is where the people who collect gold nuggets go. And they had dealers in gold nuggets, and some of them were big. Lots of armed police, tricked out in body armor. They even had a company that sells coins from shipwrecks. You see, it's a gem and mineral show, but there's enough people going, so people in adjacent anything they think will sell.
It'd be
People,
cool
If I did a comic called Mr. Cipperley and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull,
It would be cool to own a doubloon.
California Cipperley. California Cipperley.
It would be cool to own a doubloon.
yeah, and I looked at them,
Yeah.
and they were about the price of a car.
Ooh.
But
I'm sure they
my
were.
question is, would my comic sell if I had a gem-based comic?
Well, I'll tell you, we were on the second show we went to with all the displays of copper and $100,000 opals and giant crystal skulls. One person who is totally making bank was a guy who had a large booth, and he was selling toy rhinestone tiaras and knockoff Harry Potter wands and little music boxes. And the kids were just buying it up because kids would get dragged to the rock show.
Yeah, and that's the booth for them.
That's the booth for them. And
Yeah.
they were selling these wands like crazy. And I go, are these licensed? And he says, well, they've been changed off, the 10%, blah, 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 which is legal speak for no, they were not licensed.
Yes, they were not licensed.
But you'd see that people, there were people selling tools to do gem work. There was a booth there that sold reproductions of fossils, like in a completely a completely assembled dinosaur skeleton, an enormous T-Rex head.
Were these 3D printed?
No, they were cast with silicon mold in resin over a welded metal armature. I talked to the guy for a while, and they looked real. And then you look closely at it, and if you have experience doing faux finishing, you can see these were painted with automotive paints. You see sponges and dry brush.
Yeah.
And they weren't trying to cheat anybody.
Yeah.
It's just that there is a market for these reproductions for people who cannot afford the actual thing.
I have about 4 or 5 pieces of fossilized wood sitting near me from the fossilized forest. Before it was a national park, my great grandfather grabbed a bunch of pieces, and then they were distributed amongst the family. And so I got 2 pieces from that. And then Ian's grandfather did the same thing. He grabbed a bunch of pieces, and then Ian had inherited them. And so our pieces ended up just kind of, joining forces, and they look like they're practically from the same tree because they're from the same part of the petrified forest.
Yep,
hi, Band-Aid the noob.
There was petrified wood for sale there. There were expensive fossils, a lot of it was just like rocks, like trilobites and some jawbones, but there was a booth that it was like frame paintings, these were fossils that you would buy to put in a very expensive home or in this lobby. And I look at them and I'm sure they're legitimate, but at that point you're starting to wonder, are these fake? I mean, I swear that I saw a fossil of some small dinosaur at one booth, and I saw the exact same fossil, the same dinosaur in the same position.
That's why you have to ask, is it 3D printed?
The guy who was selling the doubloons, and he had silver and gold, and I didn't even bother with the gold. God only knows what they cost. But I
Yeah.
asked about pricing, and there was one that was very beautiful, and he was getting it out of the case for me to examine.
Oh
Gave
no.
me the quote, and I said, "No, put it back."
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
Like me and the pen, where it's like, it's very nice.
yeah,
Thank you for putting it in my hand. You can put it back in the case now.
yeah, it
That's
was
that was very nice of you.
the rental. We rented we had to rent a car with a trunk
Yeah.
because of the stuff we were buying. We ended up, after me arguing with Hertz. I'm not recommending Hertz anymore. But the doubloon I was looking at cost more than a 2024 Honda Civic. I mean, man.
Yeah.
But I asked him, the smart dealers there usually had stuff in different price ranges.
Yeah.
Like the guy carving gemstones, some of the carved gemstones, they were in the $20,000 to $30,000 range. But he also had stuff that was like $300, $400.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't really have any cursed crystal skulls at the convention center. They had an awesome group of food trucks. They had Filipino food with chicken adobo, and Sabrina had Asian noodles, and they had the best churros I've ever had.
One thing that I feel like we're severely lacking in shows like that here in the United States is in Roman coins, because like the Romans didn't really come here to the United States, but they were all over Europe, and so Roman coins are very common in Europe. They're very cheap in Europe, but once they make it over here to North America, the price goes up. It's like they added zero to everything.
I expect there's import restrictions on it, but maybe it's worth smuggling in a few Roman coins next time.
Well, I've always wanted a couple of Roman coins from Nero's time, because he put out like a coin every month, and like, because he was insane, and then I
Always
always
maligned later by I don't
yeah.
know, liberals.
Yeah, and then I always wanted some Medici coins, because the Medicis were minting their own currency, which was kind of against the Catholic Church at the time, which was also minting its own currency. And so, like, the Medici coins were of better quality, and they had ribbed edges, so you couldn't cut the edges like you could the Catholic coins, and trim the edges to get more gold and stuff.
Well,
And so,
the Medici
can I just interject?
the
Really,
Medici
Earth
coins
coin will be
were
launching soon.
ribbed for your pleasure.
but the ribbed edges were to preserve the integrity of the coin, and
No,
so
for
people
your pleasure.
People preferred trading in the Medici coin because they knew it was a full gold piece, right? Because if it had the full ribbing on the edges, they knew it hadn't been shaved down. For like, if you shave down 10 coins, then you got like a little bit of gold to melt down into like a new coin or something.
Yep.
And so the Medici coins were of a higher caliber quality than the Catholic coins of the period of time. And so the Catholic Church was like, no, we don't want to trade in the Medici coin. Yet they were keeping their coins in Medici banks. And so the Medici were taking Catholic coins, and then they were melting them down and making Medici coins. And so the Catholics were like, well, we're going to just withdraw our banking. And the Medicis are like, well, your banking's gone. We've already melted it down and turned it into Medici coins. So if you want to withdraw, you're going to have to withdraw Medici coins. And so, it was a really sneaky thing the Medicis did to ensure that they basically controlled the economy of Renaissance Italy. And it's
nothing like that going on today with Dogecoin and Bitcoin and.
Well, Yes and no. You're not actually far off. Is you have to understand that like you had nation coins, right? Like you had the king would issue a coin in his name, right? And this is like the English coin, and this is like this is like the Spanish coin, right? And then that coin's worth was based on the worth of like the Spanish kingdom and their exports and everything. So when you were a Spaniard and you would trade your coin going into Italy, they would weigh the coin for the amount of gold in it, but then they would also go, well, this is a Spanish coin, so it's not worth as much as an Italian coin, so we're only going to give you X amount for it, even though there's X amount of gold in it. And then they would melt down the Spanish coin to make Italian coins. And so there's a lot of this like melting down of currency, remaking currency and stuff during the Renaissance period of time, which could be kind of seen as like what's going on with cryptocurrency when you take one coin and you like turn it into another coin, or you buy another coin and stuff, because it's like the Wild West right now. And there was no such thing as blockchain back then, where you could track what happened to the gold and where the gold came from, like you can now, where you can just see like where all the stuff came from. But yeah, like, so you had these players like the Medici family, which was just a rich family, that decided we want to be a bank. And so they started minting their own coin. And they were a merchant family. They had ports at they had the lots at port, right? And then they charged lot fees for ships to come in and dock at their lots. And then that's where they made like a lot of their money. And then they would charge to unload and load the boats at their lots, and they'd get money that way. And then they had the storage warehouses for the goods that would come up off the boats, and they charged money for that. And so that's where they got a lot of their money, in like the Venice area, Florence area, kind of Milan, and parts of Rome and stuff. Like there's a Medici Plaza in Rome, but that wasn't their main stay. Like they had it there, but it wasn't like their headquarters. And so they were making money hand over fist, and then they decided to just start minting their own coin, because they hated the fact that the Catholic coin, like, again, like they would get a coin and it'd be half the weight of a real coin, because the edges had been shaved and shaved and shaved until you could barely see the face of the Pope on it anymore, because it'd been shaved down so much. It's barely the weight of the coin that it should be, right? So they invented that ribbed edge that you see on like a quarter now. So if you didn't see that edge, that meant that the coin was shaved down and it wasn't a true coin, and people wouldn't accept it. And so like that's that it as money goes, it's an interesting invention in the world of money. Well, and it threatened the Catholic Church, and I love that spite out of it, and that's why I want a Medici coin.
Well, the other thing that's interesting is it's also why popes are traditionally clean shaven, because they would have the coins and they would have the portrait of the Pope on it, and the Pope would have a beard. So not just if the coin had the milling around the edge to prevent people shaving the coin.
Yeah, we have 1 minute, by the way.
If the portrait had a beard, they would shave the beard off and make the portrait clean shaven, and that's how they would get the extra gold. So to prevent that being the coin being defaced, and that's they wouldn't just necessarily stop at the beard, they would like take off noses and ears and whatnot. Oh yeah. And that's where you get the term defacing money.
Yeah, they'd also scrape it flat across the top too.
Yeah.
That's another way that they deface it. But we got 1 more minute, so I'm gonna take over the main window to show off my Dale. So this is my Dale.
I look fat. I'm not that fat. So that's from an old picture of me holding Coco the pug.
Well, you're wearing a big puffy jacket too.
That is true. I was wearing a big puffy jacket at the time.
Yeah.
That's Coco. That's my cat Huey's pug, Coco. A lovely, very smart and loving pug dog who is owned by Huey the cat and Huey's little apprentices. Bold loves to sleep on Coco, and
then you're drawing a pirate. It looks like, but it's
I'm in essence drawing myself, and
well, it seems like a Falstaffian version of yourself. I feel like it's more like Falstaff.
We got to figure out the resolution issue with your screen share, because every time you share your screen, it's really
Is it in its camera? Do you have your screen share?
Has to do with reflector. Let me go into the settings.
You know what? Let's not do it right now. We're at the end of the show. Okay.
Do it now.
Yeah.
Do it now.
No, we're not going to do it.
Do it now.
Okay,
Settings.
and then let's back up and let's see what Chuck.
Let me move it around a bit. Yeah, we go, so we can see what I did. So there's a goblin wizard, goblins with crossbows, stone statues. This guy's called I forgot what his name is. He's like taking an inventory. There's the jailer. There's the torturer.
Nice work.
So these are all characters you'll find in the second level layer of the Rat King, the Goblin Warrants. Idyls of the Rat King, coming soon for 5th edition D&D from Goodman Games. Like, it's actually the first Dungeon Core Classics module that was published. They've got over 100 of them now.
Tina says, love the drawing with Dale and the puppy. And I think that's the show, right?
That's it then. Let's have the theme tune. I'm working on a new theme tune puppet, but that's another story.
Yeah. All right. I'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.
Okay. See you soon. See you later. Bye, kids.
Here's a theme song for Chuck Whelan Showy. He asked me to write one, but I stole from David Bowie. Here's a theme song. Chuck Whelan is the best. We have lots of hosts, but we're running out of gas. Will you be our guest on? Will you be our guest on? Be on the Chuck Whelan Show. Whoa, 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 whoa.